The agenda for today's session is understand application performance with the Apdex course, monitor code flow across applications via distributed tracing, pinpoint to the problematic elements in your application code, visualize dependencies in your application architecture with the automated service maps. Before discussing the topics in the agenda, let's start off with a short story that why an enterprise product is required from an application's performance monitoring. Let's imagine a user is accessing an e-commerce website and purchasing a product from the online store. The error might be encountered while selecting the product or while attempting to place an order. The portal takes a long time to load, or getting redirected to a different page, or showing some error codes like 401, 402, and so and so error codes. Hence, this can be detected using the enterprise tool before customer reports the problem. Let's discuss a scenario with a different use case. The banking operation has highly complex infrastructure. The existing plan from the banking sector needs to be revised due to the security policy, whereas the web application needs to have a page redirection with a new set of rules. And the app developer has also designed the page based on the app requirement. But from the customer environment, this page redirection was not working as expected. As a network engineer or a DevOps team, we do not involve more in detail about the complex codes. But as an application developer, they might have tested the application in your local environment and confirmed that the application is bug free, but there is a possibility of an error to be encountered with an error code or an issue in the JVM parameter from the customer environment. As a network engineer, we make sure of this enterprise tool to detect where the errors have been encountered with the exact error codes and push it to the developer and fix it before customer reports the problem and make your web application as a bug free. Why observability is required for an enterprise application? There are three pillars of observability, which are logs, metrics, and traces. And these three data outputs will provide a deeper insight into the health, functions of the system in the cloud, and the microservice environment. Now, we can look more in detail about these three pillars. Logs are the historical data of the system events and the errors. This can be shown in the plain text, binary, or the structured with the metadata. Next is metrics are the numerical measurements of the system performance and the behaviors such as CPU usage, response time, or the error rate. Traces. Traces are the representation of the individual request or the transaction that flows through the system, which can help to identify the bottlenecks, dependencies, and the root cause of the issue. It is necessary for a developer who are working in the web application to make sure that the website is bug-free and handle the load in the application database to ensure providing a better performance of your users. Here are some recent facts gathered by the trusted source like International Data Corporation and the Forrester. According to IDC, 90% of the respondents are currently using the observability. This makes the management to have a deeper insight and drill down information of their application. And Forrester report states that the 87% of the engineers are said that using the cloud native architecture has increased the complexity of discovering and troubleshooting the incidents. Exploring contemporary trends in the application monitoring. We can discuss about the 5 flavors of trends in the enterprise tool from the application monitor. Native application. In the recent times, large enterprises are getting adapted to switch many of their application to cloud. The cloud native application has the ability to provide the scalability, flexibility, and efficient software that uses the small independent building blocks like microservices, containerization, and Kubernetes. Even developers and operational teams are working closely together using the DevOps practices to have a better performance from the application, which gives them a reliable software delivery. So that monitoring this application is essential for analyzing how each part of the application is working, which helps them to fix any issues from handling the multiple users. Next is artificial intelligence. artificial intelligence for the IT operation capabilities. In the context of application performance monitoring, artificial intelligence and machine learning are recently used to enhance and automate the IT operations to the anomaly detection. Also, this helps to identify the unusual deviations, automate IT tasks, predictive analysis for potential future using the historical data. Optimize the resource allocation and scaling will be happening based on the real-time performance monitoring. Next is user-centric monitoring. While interacting with an application, user-centric monitoring shifts the focus from the system-centric metrics to the actual and the end-user experience. Whereas the end-user experience is gauged by examining the journey from the moment they access the application to the completion of the task. We can identify the user-centric metrics such as page load time, response time, and overall performance of the application, thereby which helps to prioritize the improvement that enhances the user satisfaction. Next one is application observability. Application observability includes the application performance monitoring, which helps in gaining the inside details of the performance, behavior, and health of an application. This can be achieved through monitoring the application transaction metrics like traces, logs, execution time, errors, insufficient in the code, and identifying the bottlenecks. Last is full stack performance monitoring. The goal of full stack performance monitoring is to identify and address the performance issues across the entire application stack from the front end user interface to the backend server infrastructure. Also, by monitoring the various layers of stack, including the application codes, server response time, and the database queries, can be achieved by collecting the real-time data on various performance metrics like response time and the error rates. By adapting to these latest trends, the organization can gain the insight into the performance of the application in the real time, which enables them to proactively identify and resolve the potential issues before they impact the end user experience. This is essential for maintaining the reliability, availability, and responsiveness of a modern application. Let's see some benefits of modern versus traditional approach in building an application. We are aware that there is a dependency on an application in our day-to-day life. Increasing the dependency on the application and the wide usage has made the application to be always available for the users. So, a group of microservices are built in a large monolithic application. The development of technologies like containerization and load balancing has helped the organization to achieve the high availability. With the advent of the cloud computing capabilities, the organization is no longer need to spend additional costing to build a large infrastructure and which helps in saving their capital expenditure. Every application are developed on a particular standards depending on the industrial standards like HIPPA for healthcare and FIPS for USA. As discussed in the previous session, using dependency mapping, you can easily identify the faulty components of the application quickly in a single click. And this could identify the application which are under the down state in a real-time manner for the instant diagnosis of the problem. So far, we have discussed why an application performance monitoring is necessary. In Applications Manager, we have a technology called APM Insight under Application Performance Monitoring. The APM Insight will gives you the understanding of how to application is behaving from the end user who is accessing it. By a complete end-to-end user transactions across your entire web application will help you to avoid the performance issue. Also, you can analyze the root cause of the problem much faster by performing the first level of troubleshooting. Are the supported technologies of an APM Insight, which are Java, Node.js, .NET Core, Microsoft.NET, PHP, Ruby Rails, and Python. Thus affecting the application performance. When a transaction is made by a user in the web application, the request will be sent from the application layer, which travels to the transactions and the network layer, and which hits the application layers, and this request will be served back to the end user. Also, The slow connection to the web application can lead to the network traffic, and the transaction consumes a longer can lead to a poor response time. Application is developed using the certain technology which might have a large number of bugs affecting the functions and the performance of the application. Bug in the code can also cause the exceptions that might result in the transaction execution failure. Stack trace can be used to identify these code issues to improve and fix the application code. High usage of the application and the optimized application to the code level may cause the high consumption of the memory from its allocated space in the machine, which also leads to the memory leakage and the out of memory. For the instance, the database calls and the queries pertaining to the specific transaction could become the high loaded affecting the performance of the application. Hence, for a developer who are working in the application can be dependent on this APM Insight monitoring tool to keep an eye on the factors affecting the performance. This functionality of APM Insight will help you to identify the application error or the latencies which affect the performance of the application. The APM Insight is an agent-based monitoring tool. The first step involves is to deploy the agent on the application server where the application is hosted. These agents are responsible for collecting the performance data and sending it to the applications manager for the analysis. The agent residing in the application server uses the bytecode instrumentation method and starts tracking the individual user transaction as they flow through the application stack, and which sends the applications manager at the fixed time interval. This allows for the detailed monitoring of a transaction performance and helps to identify any bottlenecks or performance issues. The tool provides the code visibility, monitors low database queries, and the performance by capturing the real-time user interaction with the application. You can then configure an alert and notification based on the predefined thresholds for the metrics that impacts the performance of the application. When the application performance exceeds the threshold, the tool will send an alert to the IT team, which helps the developer and the IT team to identify the areas that needs to be improved in the performances like application code, database related issues, and the page load times, which also helps them to enabling the proactively and address the issues and minimize the downtime. Exporting and elevating the performance using the APM Insight Data Exporter. In the APM Insight, we recently introduced a module called Data Exporter. A data exporter is commonly designed to facilitate the extraction and export the performance data and monitoring the metrics for the various purposes. The Applications Manager Data Exporter is dependent process that communicates the application metrics and the traces to the Applications Manager server. A single instance of Applications Manager Data Exporter can handle the data processing for the multiple application and communicate with the Applications Manager server. This way of data flow will reduce the load factor from your application server, and also Data Exporter will perform a quick data transmission to receive the data from the APM Insight agent to the Applications Manager database. This will be performed in the 1 minute time interval. Currently, we support the Data Exporter module for PHP and the Python technologies. Here are the working behavior of APM Insight using the data exporter. The agent needs to be installed from the application server, and the data exporter can be installed in the different server to reduce the load factor. The APM Insight agent will retrieve the application details and push it to the data exporter. And the data exporter will receive the data from the agent and push the data to the applications manager server. Unfolding the advantages of a data exporter. The Apdex score will be more helpful in removing the customer satisfaction. Using the enterprise tool, you can pre-analyze the data and enhance the security and reduce the network load from the application. And alert your development team in prior to make your decision wisely before the application goes down, which can also improvise your application efficiently communicating and providing a customized data transmission. Are the key performance indicators of the APM Insight. Apdex score. Apdex score is a numerical measure of a user satisfaction with the performance of the application's response time. Response time. Measure, Response time measures the average time it takes for the application to respond to the user request for the transaction across the application. Lowering the response time are generally desirable. Request. Count the total number of requests made to the application within the specific time frame and which helps to decide the overall workload and usage of the application. Data throughput. Data throughput indicates the amount of data in the bytes transferred or processed in and out in the network request by the application during the monitoring period. This helps in understanding the application's data handling capabilities. Exceptions. Exceptions tracks the number of exceptions, errors, or the failures that occur during the cycle of transaction in the chosen duration of processing the request. These exceptions could be various type of errors such as server errors, timed out, or other issues that are affecting the application normal operations. Understanding the application performance with the Apdex scores. I've categorized the application responsiveness into three different categories. One is satisfied, tolerating, and the frustrated. Satisfied. Satisfied is a category represents the highest level of user experience where the application's response time is between the satisfied threshold and the excellent threshold. User in this category are generally satisfied with the application performance. Next is tolerance. The tolerance category indicates that the application's response time is between the tolerating threshold and the satisfied threshold. User in this category might be tolerate the performance but may not be entirely satisfied as under the satisfied category. Stated. This category represents the lowest level of user experience where the application performance time is below the tolerating threshold. User in this category are likely to be frustrated with the application performance as it does not meet their expectations. Tracking the application performance with the Apdex score. Application Performance Index score is a standardized metrics to measure the user satisfaction with the application response time. Here is the methodology we use to show the Apdex score values in the APM Insight. We use the range from 0 to 1, with 1 being the best score representing the excellent user satisfaction. Advantages of monitoring the application performance with the Apdex score. User-centric performance measurement to understand the application behavior, which helps you to understand how application performance directly impacts the user experience and enables you to prioritize the improvement. The interpretation of complex performance data with the common performance metrics simplifies the complexity of the data into a single and easily understandable metrics by providing a clear and standardized value to access the performance of the application. You can benchmark and compare the performance levels of different applications, which allows you to identify high performing application leading to the consistent improvement across your IT environment. Active issues identification, a prioritization of code optimization. So, when a performance falls below the acceptable level, Abdex score will help you to identify the critical transaction with the low score, highlighting the areas of code optimization, alerts are being triggered, enable quick issue identification, and improving the key transaction metrics that impacts the user satisfaction. The historical Abdex trend data allows you to analyze the performance pattern over the time, helping in understanding the performance trends, which identifies the improvement of ensuring a consistent positive user experience. So, by now you would be more interested in configuring the key business transactions to monitor the entire performance of the application effectively. In this slide, we shall see on configuring the key transaction of your business operations. There would be a high volume of activities made in the application. All the transactions will be captured, among which you can select the key transactions that want to be monitored and set a threshold based on the response time of the transaction. So once the threshold has been breached, you will be alerted from the applications manager. Monitor code flow across applications via distributed tracing. What is a distributed tracing? In a microservice architecture, it is necessary to monitor a transactions made between two or more applications or services. In this case, with the help of a distributed tracing feature, you can track the transactions made between two or more applications, which is so-called a cross-application tracing. Distributed tracing is a method of observing a request as they propagate through the distributed cloud environment. It flows an instruction and tag it with a unique identifier. This identifier says with the transaction as it interacts with the microservices, containers, and the infrastructures. Let us understand how tracking is being done in distributed tracing. When an API request is made by an application to another application, APM Insight has an HTTP error containing the metadata, which is required to track a request. If APM Insight is enabled in the other application, it will process the HTTP error and return the tracking information to its caller via response headers. If the other application in return calls and the other services, the header propagation would continue and trace all the paths taken by the original application across the distributed system. In this data, we can monitor the start time when the transaction was initiated, response time taken for the transaction to respond within the application, and the name of the transaction by the application. Clicking on the expand tree view of an application name, you can also view the methods, calls, and the code blocks that has been taken with a significant time to complete the request. And this enables you to monitor the calls made between the two applications and narrow down the problem. In this slide, we can discuss about the autoscaling feature in the APM Insight. Autoscaling is an automated way to managing the resource of an application. Imagine you have a website or an app running on the cloud environment. Whenever the application automatically scales up due to the high user interaction in the site, and to handle this extra traffic in a new instance are being getting added. However, when these applications are scaled down due to the lesser user interaction, these newly added instances become the unused and still retained. This impacts the license being consumed by the unused instances and resulting to the new instances are not being added for monitoring. Hence, with the help of a autoscale mode in APM Insight, you can overcome the scenario by automatically managing and deleting the unused instances in the cloud environment. Pinpoint to the problematic elements in your application code. Here, let's see that need to be eliminated the issues in the problematic code. As you are aware, the stack trace represents the movement of an application during the execution of a program. When the Java application throws an exception, stack traces gets logged with it. By analyzing the stack trace provided by the APM Insight, developer can pinpoint the exact line of the code and the sequence of the functions called leading to the issues. This information will help the user to understand the root cause of the problem and make the code optimization or bug fixes to eliminate the issue, and which improvises also the application performance. With the help of a stack trace, developer can efficiently troubleshoot and resolve the problem within the application code, which also ensures a smoother and the more reliable user experience. You can now enable the context-based monitoring for your Java application. This context-based monitoring allows the tool to track and trace the individual user transaction, capturing the data on how each registration transaction flows through your application server. Let's say Your application server has three Java applications running on it. By default, the transaction of all application coming from the same application server are shown collectively under the web transaction of an APM Insight. In the image as you see, Tomcat application is an application monitor name, and JPEG store, sample, and sample web app are the three contexts running on the same application server. The transactions of these three Java applications are listed out in the Web Transaction tab. Now, with the context-based monitoring, you can monitor the performance of an individual application running in the same app server separately, which also helps you to analyze your application performance more in detail. Visualize dependencies in your application architecture with the automated service maps. Let's take a use case. In IT infrastructure and the network, an application may be connected to the multiple databases and have a dependencies with the several servers. So, when the service map provides the way to analyze the topological view of the application and along with its instances are represented in the central node. Whereas you can easily identify the root cause and the status of the application database and the servers. The server map will help your developer or technician to identify whether the dependencies has been disconnected or not. There are three types of views available: map view, table view, and the graphical view. Now, let's have a look of all these can be achieved in the APM Insight Monitor from the Applications Manager UI. And also, we can further discuss in detail how we can generate a reports for the management perspection and configure the alarms for the performance metrics. Let's take a Java Application Monitor as an example from the APM Insight technology, where we have already added a Java Monitor to the Applications Manager. Now, we can discuss about the tabs and the metrics available from the APM Insight Monitor. Let's start off with the Monitor Information tab. Under Monitor Information tab, we show the application configuration details like how many instances are being added to the added to the APM Insight Monitor and the agent type, host details. Whereas under this tab, you can able to find all the application configuration details. From the Overview tab, we display the performance metrics like Apdex score, response time, request, data throughput, and the exceptions of the overall application. The response time broken by the components has a differentiated between the two different types. One is web transactions and another one is a background transactions with the graphical representation. And also, we do provide a customizable option under the graph for the web transactions. To compare the metrics, you can enable this checkbox and disable this checkbox so that you can have a comparison of the metrics which is available under this graph. Under this transaction list, we just list out the primary metrics which is impacting your application for the troubleshooting aspects like Apdex score, errors, HTTP error rates, request throughput, and data throughput. From the troubleshooting aspect, we also display the top 5 transactions and the error transactions which has happened from the particular time frame. We click on this monitor action, we just display the edit, delete, and the suspend option from the application layer. And if we switch it to the instances available into this application, we also display a multiple options like edit, enabling the report for this monitor, edit the display name, configure alarm, alarm history, delete, and the suspend. The suspend option will stop the data collection for this particular instance. And if you need to filter out the transactions for the particular time frame, you can choose this drop down. And additionally, we also provide an option for capturing a screenshot of this APM Insight Monitor. There are two types of screenshot available over here. One is full page screenshot and another one is visible part. And if we click on this full page screenshot, it will create an image of the APM Insight Monitor which has been displayed here. And once it has been displayed, you can directly edit this screenshot and download the screenshot as a PDF format, and also you can send this screenshot to your internal team. We can move on to the transactions tab. Under transactions, we list all the transactions which has been performed from the application, which have a deeper insight metrics like Apdex score, response time, request, and the data throughput. Now, we can have a detailed explanation about the metrics which are available over here. Let's start off with a web transaction. Web transaction is the web request from the application which are being performed from the browser, which will be considered as a web transaction. And from here is a filter out for the background transactions. The background transactions are the data where the transactions happened in the behind, where the internal application or the transactions which are called by the scheduler, which is considered as a background transaction. And if any error occurred during the transactions, those will be captured under the errors tab. You have a specific option called key transaction metrics. If you need to filter your transactions which is impacting your application, then select the star icon which is the transaction which is impacting, so that those transactions will be listed under the key transactions tab, so that you can able to monitor these transactions frequently. Next, we can move on to the database tab. Every transactions from the application will have a database operation to fetch the details, whereas we capture the queries like select, update, insert, and delete. The database operations will be represented in two different views. One is table view and another one is graphical view representation. If you need to know more drill down details of each and query which has been performed at the database level, you can navigate and click on to the specific query, so that this will show you the detailed metrics like how many requests has been taken for this query and average response time taken for this. And also we do show the database operations by the callers, database operations by the response time, and also the throughput. We can move on to the traces tab. Multiple transactions being performed in the application will be captured under the traces tab, where we show the cumulative of the transactions with the error codes. To have a drill down information of the specific traces, you can click on the particular transactions or the traces which is available over here, so that this will show you the detailed information of a server metrics like the response time, CPU time, memory used, and the total bytes in and out. If you need to know what are all the calls being performed in behind for each and every queries, you can scroll it down and you can find it under the trace details. Also, in additionally, we provide the SQL statements, remote external calls, and the other traces of transactions and the JVM. Your team need to know what are all the slow metrics, suspected slow metrics that is happening for the particular database query. Then if we select this option, this will be highlighted in the diff. Next, we can move on to the service map. Under service map, we capture the network connectivity of the infrastructure like application, databases, and the servers. If there is any network connectivity issue or the network disconnectivity between the application and the databases, or between the databases and the server, the severity icon will be turned to red. We can move on to the app parameters. In the app parameters, we monitor the primary parameters that holds the application. Whereas in the parameters, we will just show the sum and the count of each and every parameters. Next is threat profiling. The threat profiling helps you to identify and isolate the bottlenecks in your code stack. In Applications Manager APM Insight, all thread profiles collected in the chosen time window along with the thread count, CPU, and the memory details. So far, we have discussed what are all the metrics available from the APM Insight. Now, let's discuss more in detail about the troubleshooting aspect. Since your management or the DevOps team doesn't know like when the transaction has usually consumed. So from this filterization option, if we see over here, the errors are normal in the particular time frame, but at 8 a.m. the spike has been high. So if we drill down this information by clicking this peak point, it will directly take you to the transactions that has been performed with the filter option and the custom range so that you can easily identify the particular transaction has consumed a high error rate of 100% at the particular time. This will make your internal team work easier to detect in which transaction impacts your performance of the application. Next, we can move to the report aspects. A single application has the multiple instances. Then all instances will be listed under this application tab. And if you select this instances and generate the report at the particular instance level, you can select the click on the numerical value of the attribute which is required by your internal team so that this will redirect to the reports page where you can able to download this report in the PDF format or the CSV format. You need to extract the report for all the APM Insight monitors which has been added to the Applications Manager. Then you can click on this Reports tab, navigate to the Application Servers, and select the APM Insight category where we will categorize the available reports under this. The at a glance report will have the cumulative of all the attributes which is available and with all the monitors in a single report. This report can also have a time frame in the previous time interval, and this can also be downloaded in the PDF and the CSV format. If your internal team needs to download any selective attributes, you can click on the select attribute option and select the attribute which is available over here so that this will redirect to your reports page. Next, we can move on to the alerting options which is available from the APM Insight Monitor. On the Settings tab, under Actions or Alarm, configure alarms, and we have provided a three different options by configuring the alerts at the individual monitor type and the group template and monitor type. Under monitor type, you can select the category of the monitor type like APM Insight so that this will list you the number of attributes which are available under this monitor type. Click on Associate for this respective attribute. Select the threshold which is available over here, or else you can manually edit and provide the threshold based on your requirement and this save the option. Once the values is breached with the threshold values, the Applications Manager will send you an alert to the internal team. Brings back to the end of the training session. So let's have a quick recap of what was being discussed. Tracking the application performance using the Apdex score, finding the problems with the application code, tracking the transactions from one application to another and debugging the issues, identifying the problem in the code stack and how the service map makes it easier to identify the problem, Latest updates, you can follow us on YouTube and LinkedIn. If you have any further more queries, you can write to your email ID eval-apm@manageengine.com. If you are excited customer and loved our product, you can scan the QR code and earn a reward of $25 of gift voucher by sharing your applications manager experience. Thank you for showing your interest in today's webinar. Have a nice day.